What's happening, everybody? This is Paul Cook from Sector 2815. We are here with a special crossover issue today. We have Kevin Vidinha from Superpower Review and Karate Kevin 67 from Instagram, and we'll talk to him right after this. As I said, everyone, Paul Cook, this is if this is your first watching, I would love it if you would hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification button so that you get notified when we upload new content. I am so happy today. I just want to say that since I've joined YouTube and Instagram to talk about comics, the whole comics community has been extremely nice to me, and I really can't thank them enough. But having said that, no one has been nicer to me than the guy that I'm about to bring on. He has been just always willing to help me. He has, said, what can I do? He was how I first got on YouTube, me onto his show. And so I am so happy to bring on Kevin from Superpower Review. Hey, Kevin.
What's up, man? Hey, those were some really nice words. Thank you. I appreciate it. And you said my last name perfectly. You deserve a prize for that alone.
I practiced all last night.
just look at yourself in the mirror. Vidinha. That's why I say my last name every single video on my channel, because there will be that one person who will still watch the channel and say my last name wrong, which isn't a big deal, but it's like, this is why I say my last name every time, man.
Yeah, you got to. People got to know who you are, and people should respect you enough to say your last name right. So,
I told my parents I will let people know how to pronounce my name someday.
But seriously, you had me on your channel before I was anybody. I was just on Instagram, and you had me on your channel, and that was how I first got onto YouTube. And then I started watching people, and I'm like, hey, maybe I can do this too. We'll see what happens. But you are just over 500 subscribers now, so congrats on that. That's just a huge accomplishment.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate
it. And you're in a way on Instagram. So why don't you just kind of start, if you would, tell a little bit about you, about how you got into comics and how you started the channel.
Sure. So my name is Kevin Vidinha. Just want to say I am the host and creator of Superpower Review. And man, how did I get into this? So I was, I'm a little brother. I have an older sibling, and so of course we grew up together, watching all these animated shows, all these, the original Batman movie with Michael Keaton and all that stuff. So of course, being kids, we grew up with that. Absolutely loved it, and we had to have every single toy we possibly could for Christmas, Easter, or our birthdays. So that's pretty much like the whole nutshell of it. So my brother would get comics once in a while. So like when we visit our grandparents or my grandmother's house, she would take him to the comic book shop. He would pick out a comic. I was too young to know about comics pretty much. I mean, if I did, I would just look through his comic books and look at the pictures, because I didn't pretty much know how to read yet. I'm like 4 or 5 years old. So I just thought, I always thought the artwork in comic books was just amazing. You know what I mean? And I knew for a young age at that time that somebody drew this. You know what I mean? Somebody took the time to draw this out. Right. And how much time it took to do it, I don't know. Maybe it took an hour for them to do it. Like I said, I'm a kid. I have no idea. I just know somebody did this, and I appreciated the work that got put into it. So, for instance, Batman 423, the Todd McFarlane cover. My brother still has that the original copy that my grandmother bought for him. That to this day. And so I remember, him bringing that home and being like, that's a really cool image of Batman. He used to like have it like hung up like I don't know. He used to have like some sort of like book frame, and you would have it like in like on top of his like on his like bed, like what was that? What would you call that? A headboard? You know what I mean? So he used to have it like displayed there and stuff, and we grew up together, and once I started get to better at reading, we used to read Maximum Carnage together. Like he would actually, we would buy every single issue when it would come out, and we would read it together. When Jim Lee started doing stuff with X-Men, that amazing Magneto cover from the 90s. We would buy that, or our parents would buy that, and we would read it together, look through the pictures, and point out our favorite pieces of artwork. And so like every Sunday too, my dad used to take my brother and I to what we would call the magazine store, and it had magazines, and it had comic books. It had a small section of comic books, and my dad every week would allow me to pick out a comic book. So back then, I was a huge fan of Dark Horse's Godzilla King of Monsters. Those were my favorite. And I wish I still had most of those comic books today, because I'm slowly getting them back. But I do have a few that I used to have as when I was a kid. But man, if I still had those, I think I would be so much happier. I wish I still had them, but I would pick those up every week. That was my favorite, because being a Godzilla fan as a kid, Godzilla was one of my favorite things, still is to this day. And I just love seeing how the artist, who I know now today is Arthur Adams, but didn't know that as a kid. I thought it was so cool, again, appreciating artwork on how this artist was able to capture the identical look of Godzilla from the movies. And I just thought that was so cool. Like it looks just, I feel like I'm watching a Godzilla movie, but reading it on a comic book.
Right. Yeah. And he does, mostly covers now, I think, for the most part, Arthur Adams, but he's just a great artist. And the channel started out with you and your brother originally, right?
Yeah. So when, I was slowly getting back into buying comics, ordering comics. And so like, I've always liked comics, but I think with all of us, there was so many times where we jumped on the bandwagon and jumped off the bandwagon, you know what I mean? But even if you do jump off the bandwagon, you always have a true passion for these heroes or for these characters, right? You're always wearing t-shirts of them, or you're buying some sort of, I don't know, poster, or something, you're buying something with the character on it, even though if you're not reading. So, through my childhood, I was reading comic books. And then, I would say like in middle school ish, like when the Spider-Man movies started coming out, I was starting to read Amazing Spider-Man, like every other week when they would come out. And then like, take a break then, because I'm a kid in middle school. Like I'm literally not eating lunch at school so I can save my lunch money to buy these comic books. And so I stopped, and high school came, and I was doing the same thing because Marvel Zombies came out. And when I heard that Marvel's making zombies out of their superheroes and villains, is like, I gotta get that. I gotta read that. I'm a zombie guy. I love zombies. Like, let's do that. Horror, let's go. So go on off. So like around the time when I've got my first full-time job in what I do now, which is video production and stuff, I was just working one day, and my boss came back from lunch, and he goes, "Hey, have you ever been to the time capsule up the road?" And I said, "No, I have no idea what that is. What is it?" He goes, "Oh, well, I go there for the records, but it's a huge comic book shop." And I'm like, "Comic book shop, huh? I haven't read a comic book in a couple of years since high school, so let's go check this out one day. So a few weeks later, I stopped in there. The owner was there right as I opened the door, and the place is pretty big. And he knows his customers very well. He saw that he's never seen me before. He's like, "Hey, are you new here? I'm pretty sure you're new here. I've never seen you here before." I'm like, "Yeah, this is my first time walking in." And he goes, "Well, would you like a tour of the place?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." So he's showing me from A to Z, every single title, where that would be. He's showing me where all the new comic books would be, where the independent comic books would be. And I'm just like, man, this place is dangerous. That's what I said right away. And he chuckled at that, and he was like, "Is there anything I can help you find today?" I was like, I really like Venom, I like Batman, so if you can like show me trade paperbacks, because when I was in high school, I mean, I would buy floppies, but I would always wait for the series to end and then just buy the trade paperback later. I thought that was the smarter option for me for at that time. So I was buying trades, and then after that, I was like getting into floppies and buying books that I used to have as a kid, because I felt like this comic book shop almost had everything that I was ever looking for. And so it's like I would think about that comic book and be like, "Oh, I wonder if the time capsule has it." Would go there, and sure enough, of course they had it. So I would just buy it, and it would be another book that I'd be bringing into the collection. So this is again around the time I'm getting back into comic books. I'm starting to do cons again. I'm going to my first few cons, and then so my brother and I, of course, would go to these cons together. This is around the time where he's starting to buy comic books again. He doesn't collect comic books anymore. He has a comic book collection, but he's out of the comic book game. We were going to cons together, and there was one particular con where after the show, we would go live on our Facebook, on my Facebook, and we would just talk about our day and just hang out. And people actually thought it was pretty cool. And so my boss happened to watch the 3-day live stream of our Rhode Island Comic Con update, and he thought it was pretty cool. And he's like, you guys mingle very well together. Why don't you guys, do a show at the studio? And I was like, come again? Like what? Like, you're my boss. You're gonna let me record in the studio while I'm at work? You're awesome. Let's go. And so that's what we did. My brother and I would do it together. Unfortunately, it didn't last long. We did 5 episodes together, I believe, together. And then he decided he wanted to do his own thing. We had some creative differences, which is okay. And so he went to start his own channel, because on Superpower Review, I would focus on comic books and my brother would focus on video games. And we would just split the half hour, taking turns talking about news or reviews. And so he started his own thing, and that didn't last long at all. And I was kind of bummed when he left, because I didn't think I could have done it without him, to be honest. So there was just one day I had a boost of energy, and I was like, man, I've taken so much time, or it took so much time to come up with the graphics for the show. I mean, I've created everything for Superpower Review, the intro, I built the set. So like, I gotta make it worth my while. Like I gotta bring this back. So I think it was like 4 months after I built the courage to bring Superpower Review back. And and we're going 4 years strong now.
Wow. Yeah, I actually don't know if I ever told you this, but how I found your channel was the YouTube algorithm worked somehow, and I came up with and it brought up your video when you visited down to Florida. You went to Coliseum of Comics in the Fashion Square Mall, and which is not there anymore. They moved out, but that's my local comic book, and I'm like, my local comic book shop. And so I watched that, and then you did another one where you went to Living Dead, I believe, and that's like 2 miles down the road from me. So that's how I ended up finding your channel.
Really? Okay.
And so yeah, absolutely. So the YouTube algorithm, it does work.
Oh, good. Yeah, that was a fun time going down to Florida and doing those videos. My wife was like, "Hey, you're on vacation. You're not supposed to be doing videos." I'm like, "I don't know when I'm going to be able to do this again. So let's just do the videos, okay?"
And you're home. My wife let me buy some comics while I was down here.
Yeah.
So. you decide when you were talking when you decided you were going to do some content, because a lot of people do some news, they do some unboxings, they do other things. Did you have a particular, you said, okay, this is just going to be, my lane, I'm going to stick to that. And then tell me how you ended up with excuse me, with What's That Comic Book?
Um, can you say the first question again? Because you're kind of breaking up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. When a lot of people who do the videos, they do some news, or maybe they do unboxing, maybe they do their comic day haul. Did you, when you were going into it, did you decide exactly, was it going to be a little bit of everything, or were you going to stick to one lane? And then how did the What's That Comic Book come about?
Yeah, so I mean the name says it all, Superpower Review. I was gonna just strictly be reviews. And it's kind of funny because, hey, Jesus, what's up, man? It's kind of funny because I would do reviews, and I mean, for a long time, I was doing videos, and I just feel like nobody was watching anything, And I was just like, man, is there anybody out there? Like, maybe nobody talks about comic books on YouTube. Like, I just don't know. Maybe there's just nobody here. And so strictly reviews. When I did like statue reviews, action figure reviews, those would actually get more than the comic books. So I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. And then I don't know what video it was, but there was just so many things where people were like, when I finally broke into the community, when I finally found out that a community even existed, it was like, there are people out here. Okay, all right, we're here. All right, good. There was just so many things where, I unboxed like a thing on CGC, and like I showed what I got, and people were like, you should have done a video on this. I'm like, people want to see that? Like, you would want to see that? Or, what I got for New Comic Book Day. And I'm like, people want to see that? Okay, like maybe I shouldn't just do reviews. Maybe I should just kind of expand and try to do other things then. And so I was, testing the waters, and all of a sudden it seems like anything but a review was getting more views than anything else. I'm like, all right, well, maybe I shouldn't just stick with reviews. So I started doing other things, and I was just kind of like, oh, well, maybe people would want to see this if they want to see that. And so I did it, and people started watching it. So I don't know, whatever. So I that's how I kind of like branched off into stuff. And then once I kind of got like serious, when I needed the 4,000 watched hours on YouTube to get paid, that was sort of like a goal. It wasn't so much about getting the money, to be honest. It was just to say, like, I got the 4,000 watched hours. I did it. So I was getting serious, and I started doing live streams. I used to go live every Monday for the Superpower Hour. I haven't done that in a long time, and I know a lot of people have been requesting that show to come back. So I might be bringing that back. Getting to What's That Comic Book, how I came up with that idea was, it wasn't an idea at all. It really wasn't. It was just, it was spur of the moment. I literally pulled something out of my ass really quick. I'm friends with Mark Spector Comics, David Ribeiro, who's really close to me, and I'm also friends with Steve from Burke Family 54 Comics. And we were taking turns guest appearing on each other's channels. So one week we're on Steve's, and then the other week we're on Mark Spector's. So I was the last one, and like, all right, Kevin, it's your turn. It's time for us to go on your channel. What are we doing? And I'm like, okay, I gotta think of something real quick. And I was like, I love random pulls. Let's just do like a show of random pulls. So I go, guys, we're just gonna come on my show for an hour. We're gonna take turns randomly pulling comic books, and we're just going to give as much information about them as possible. That's it. We're just going to nerd out. No pressure. That's it. That's all we're going to do. And so they're like, okay, cool, game. Let's do that. And so I was making the thumbnail. I'm like, what am I going to call this? I'm like, oh, I don't know. Let's just call it What's That Comic Book? Whatever. So I made the thumbnail. We had that live stream. People loved the show. I got feedback on the show. I feel like out of all the 4 years I've ever been doing on YouTube, whether it's reviews, unboxings, comic creator interviews, I got the most feedback out of the most simplest thing ever. And I was just like, okay, like, all right, the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. And so people loved it. So I started doing it every single week. What's that comic book? I bring people from the comic community with me. And we just nerd out together talking about comics and pulling out comic books out of our collection, for an hour.
Yeah, you never really know what's going to resonate with someone. To your point, it's just show me what you got. That's the thing that I really love about What's That Comic Book is it's just and it's even more than the comic. It's the story in the comic books.
Yeah, right.
That really is kind of how did you get it, or how did that comic book come to be, or what kind of meaning does that comic book have for you? Those are that I really love. As well, obviously, as I love, when people try to one up each other sometimes on the show, with the comic books. But yeah, it really is. Still waiting for you to just do an all ASM 300.
Maybe tonight. Maybe tonight.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I did a little math. I did a little math. It's not exactly how many in was ASM 300, but it's guessed that there's about 300,000 copies that were printed of ASM 300. So I did the math, and you own 0.0027% of every ASM 300 that was ever printed.
Yes. Man, that book, dude.
What is
that?
Yeah. Tell me about it. What does that book mean to you? How did you, because obviously it has a deep connection for you.
Yeah, it does. That and Secret Wars 8. So again, around the time I was collecting comic books in high school, when I was collecting comic books or reading comic books in high school, this is like when I actually was taking comic books a little more seriously. I was reading older issues instead of the newer runs that were coming out every week. And so from being, being a fan of Venom and always being a lover of the symbiote suit since day one of seeing it on the animated series from the 90s, I was starting to do like a little more research about comic book characters and their origin. So like finding out that Wolverine first appeared in a Hulk issue blew my mind as a teenager, because like, man, like, what is Wolverine doing in an Incredible Hulk issue? Like, well, he's an X-Men. Why did he not appear in an X-Men book? You know what I mean? Or finding out that Black Panther first appeared in Fantastic Four, and all those weird first appearances in those guest starring titles, you know what I mean? So this is again when I was doing more research on comic books and learning more about the characters and really turning into a full out nerd. And I had one classmate of mine who was also into comic books, and trust me, there wasn't many comic book nerds in high school. We were very small. We were a small group, and so I would talk with him a little bit, and so being always a lover again of Venom and the black suit, I one day was like, let's see the first appearance of Venom. Like, when was the first appearance of Venom? And I think this was around the time when Spider-Man 3 came out. And so I was researching ASM 300, see that cover with all the red 300s all over it, and Spidey's web slinging with that black suit. And I just remember being like, that's a cool cover. That's a really, really cool cover. And I was like, I wonder how much this book is right now. And I remember going in eBay and seeing how much it was. And I think at that time, do you remember? Do you know off the top of your head when Spider-Man 3 came out? What year? I want to say it was 2008, maybe. I don't know. No,
it sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. 2008, 2007. And so I went on eBay, checked out how much an ASM 300 was, and I think at that time a raw book was going for about like $100 to $125. And I remember just being like, "No way! I'll never own that book. I would never pay, $100 for a comic book. No freaking way." And so that was just always a book that I've always wanted. And so when I finally, started working full time and making some decent money and getting back into comic books, when I was at a con, someone had an ASM 300, and I'm like, I deserve this. I deserve this book. I really do. This is the first appearance of one of my favorite characters of all time. This is done by one of my favorite artists, and I'm gonna do it. And I know you. I know that you more or less know what I have in my collection, and so like I'm kind of a cheapo, but when it comes to comic books, I'm not. And so I went to the con with my brother, and I picked up my first ASM 300 which was $180 at the time. And my brother was like, "I can't believe you spent $180 on a comic book." I go, "Wow. I know, right? Like this is so not like me, right? To spend something like this on a comic book." And I think I spent $300 over that weekend on a Comic Con, and I was just like, I never want to see comics ever freaking again. I'm comic sick right now. I can't believe I spent $300 on that book, and like it's nothing compared to now, right? Like again, I know more or less what I have in my collection, and and then it just started going crazy. I mean, when I first bought my first copy of Secret Wars #8, which was an 8.5 at the time, I still have it, but it's not slabbed. I cracked it open. But spending $85 on my first slab, which was that Secret Wars 8, and I was like, man, I can't believe I spent $80 on a comic book. Like, what's wrong with me right now? But $80 now doesn't seem nowhere like close or compared to what I just recently spent on my Werewolf by Night #32. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Before I forget, I just wanted to thank Kate for joining us today. If you don't know, he's one half of the Spec Tales podcast, just started yesterday. So give him a listen, and thanks for watching, Zeus. We appreciate you. Okay, so you got one ASM 300, so that's your first one.
Yeah.
How did they become like bunnies and multiply to 8?
Well, at the time too, I was friendly with this Instagrammer. I would consider this person the first person I befriended on Instagram. I haven't heard from him in a long time. I don't know what he's doing now. But he was the same thing. He was a Venomaniac like I was. That was one of his favorite comic books as well. And so after he would buy one, like we kind of got into like this like friendly competition where like if he bought one, I went to go buy one, and if I bought another one, he went to go buy another one. And it was just also sort of like more realistic as well. I was like, this is one of my favorite comic books. I know that this book will be worth more money than what I paid for in the future. Let's just buy them while they're cheap now. And so I just started, I don't know why 8. I don't know why I went to 8. I think it's because I had Secret Wars 8 and I had 8 copies. Like, oh yeah, let's just get 8 copies of 300 to match the number. I don't freaking know. I don't freaking know, man. And like I said, when my friend Josh on Instagram was buying, I was like, oh, I gotta get another one. If you got another one, I'm gonna get another one too, and we can both say we got the same amount together, whatever. But like I said, it was more sort of like this book is going to be worth more someday than what I paid for, and so let's buy them. So I bought my first one at that Comic-Con when I went with my brother. That time, when my brother and I went, Stan Lee was there, and my brother got a Spider-Man 1 gold, Spider-Man #1 gold variant signed by Stan.
Yep.
And I didn't go see Stan. I never went to go see Stan because I just thought Stan was too expensive to go see. So when my brother got his graded comic back, I was like, man, I should have gotten I want something signed by Stan Lee. And so, sure enough, the person who's going to be on What's That Comic Book today, Cosmic Creature Comics, had a Spider-Man 300 signed by Stan Lee at a 9.0 for sale. And it was around Christmas time. And it was like, hey, man, like, what are you looking to get for this? Like, I'm like, I know you have like a price set, but like, it can't, like, are you open to offers? Like, I'm still really new at buying bigger comic books, so I don't know. I don't know if it's even incredibly rude for me to ask if he can do an offer on a book like this. It's like, I'll tell you what, I'll do $275 for you right now. I was like, $275, wrap it up, let's go. And so that's how much I paid for my first Stan Lee signed ASM 300 was $275. Wow. So that's around that's how much that book was going for, and that was kind of considered a good deal at the time. I think he was originally asking $300 for that book, and so that became one of my favorite books because I knew it was signed by Stan Lee. I had to slap all the other signatures on it because I'm a signature guy, like my book signed. So around the time, then Todd McFarlane came, sent the book out, came back, looks beautiful. David Michelini is doing a private signing, send the book out. And the people who were doing the private signings was like, hey, Kevin, you know, we've seen this book multiple times. This is our second time seeing this book. This is your last signature. We know, like, you should get this book pressed and cleaned. Like, this book would benefit from a pressing and cleaning. And I'm a newbie in this time. I'm like, I don't know anything about pressing and cleaning. You know, I would look over the book and I'm like, the book looks fine to me. It's a 9.0. It's a good grade. I didn't care about condition really too much then either. And I was like, all right, what the hell? Like $20, press and clean. All right, let's do it. It's the last time this book is going to get signed. And that book came back. And when that book came back at a 9.4, man, I can't tell you how many laps I did around the house, hollering and yelling. And my wife saying, like, what is going on? What are you doing? What just happened? Like, is there rats in that box? Like, why are you screaming like a girl? And I was just like, man, like, and that ever since then, I was a firm believer about pressing and cleaning books. And I started to knowledge myself about when can you press and clean books, and you know, what are some of the defects to look for in order to do that. And it's been a fun journey, dude. Like, talking to you about it now, like all of the past and you know, how differently I think about things now and then, like, it's been a really fun journey. And I think I've been collecting again for about 5 going on 6 years. So
and to be fair, although you have 8 copies, you have different iterations. You have some slabbed, some not slabbed. You have some signed, some not signed. You know,
I have only one signed copy.
I mean, I joke about you having 8 copies, but I wish I had 8 copies of ASM 300. You know,
the cheapest one I ever paid for was my first one, which was $180. Yeah. I never spent any more than $300 on a copy.
Yeah, but that's one of those, you know, there are, you know, blue chip, you know, issues. And ASM 300, I think, is one of those. You know, that's never going to go down. You know, it may not go up as much as some other ones, but it's going to always be on an upward trajectory. So.
Yeah, I mean, even then, like, you know, when I was a teenager too, again, going back to like researching the history of comic books, you know, there's so many times where I would look up a first appearance and, like, you know, it's not like a really great first full appearance. You know what I mean? Like, the person is like, you know, maybe in like 3 panels or something, and you're like, that's a first full appearance. And I'm like, I don't feel like you're getting your money's worth. Like, for ASM 300, for example, I think you're getting it's a blue chip key, like you said. Not only are you getting the first full appearance of Venom, but you're getting Venom all throughout the entire book. You know what I mean? You're seeing him throughout the whole entire book. It's a 25th anniversary issue, so it's a bit thicker than the regular books, and it's a good fight. It's a good fight between Spider-Man and Venom. And this was another thing that as a teenager, when I looked up, like Wolverine, for instance, like Wolverine in his first full appearances, he looks like the Wolverine we know today, but there are slight changes. And those changes, back then are considered like a little campy. He's got the whiskers kind of going on. Like Wolverine wouldn't wear that. He would say that's like kind of that's I don't know. That's not him. That's not the guy with the attitude. You would think that would be lame or something. And so like when a character shows up in their first full appearances, they're not as set in stone as we know them today. And I feel like that kind of like the Hulk, for instance. When the Hulk first appeared in his first comic books, he was gray, and he would only turn into the Hulk
Right.
when it was nighttime. That's not the Hulk we know. You know what I mean? So like, I feel like if you were to get the first appearance of the Hulk, like if I were to get the first appearance of the Hulk, like I'm not a huge fan of the Hulk. I mean, I like him. I think he's cool, but it's not a character that I collect a lot of. But if I were to get the first appearance of him, I wouldn't want to spend too much money on it to begin with because of that factor. Like, it's not the Hulk that we know today. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, absolutely. A lot of characters, in their first appearances are they're been fully fleshed out, and it takes a little while, for characters to kind of develop into who people recognize them as. And a lot of times the first appearance is not that at all. You're right.
right, and it's true. Like, I mean, you can almost say a little bit of the same about ASM 300 because, like, when you see Venom's mouth, he doesn't have sharp teeth. It's just like sort
Mhm.
of a smile. You know what I mean? And there's no definition to the teeth, and there's no definitive lines to make sharp teeth, so you just assume like it's big teeth, and like it's almost like human size bigger teeth like the Hulk's. You know what I mean? But there's no it's around like 315 and 316 where you start seeing him with the sharper teeth. You know what I mean? So even then, like, you're getting the first appearance of Venom, and it is more or less of what we know of him today, but it's just like it's just the teeth that are missing. So that's like the other thing about first appearances. You know what I mean? That I've always sort of like, oh, like, that's disappointing. Like when I found out as a kid, a teenager, that the Hulk only was gray and turned into the Hulk at night, I was like, that's not Hulk. That's not what the Hulk does. Like somebody messed up there, man.
That's just a really great vampire who only comes out at night.
That's just a rip off of Mr. Jackal and Mr. Hyde, man. That's what that is.
So your favorite superhero? Be...
Oh, I can never pick a favorite superhero because I have like a top list, but like I can't pick a favorite. Yeah. I mean, like it can change every day. You know what I mean? Like it's always been, even when I was a kid, it's always been a fight between Spider-Man and Batman. Like, who do I like better? And I can't pick one because I love them for different reasons.
Okay. Villain, though, I assume would be Venom.
Yeah. Anti-hero villain would be Venom for sure. Right. Top list. I mean, there's so many reasons why I like Venom. I mean, when he first started coming out in comic books, he was super aggressive, and I miss that about Venom to this day. I know he's more of the anti-hero later, and the Donny Cates run, he's a little more calmed down because he's a dad and he's trying to do the right thing now. But I do miss that vicious Venom hulking out, and like no animosity to anything. Like, I miss that a lot. But yeah, Venom, he's always been aesthetically pleasing to me. I've always been a huge fan of the black suit, like I've said earlier on Spider-Man, and once it went on Venom, it was like so much sicker because now we have something with teeth, and I've always been a sucker for anything with sharp teeth.
Now, are you looking forward to the MV Al Ewing Brian Hitch Venom?
I'm hesitant.
Yeah,
I'm hesitant because
I mean, following Cates has got to be just really daunting task.
Yeah, they have really big shoes to fill. I mean, I'm not so worried too much about the artist that's coming on, but the writer, yeah, because like I said in my videos, especially for the reviews on Venom, this guy could just come in and totally undo everything that Donny Cates just did. You know what I mean? And he can take it and run with it and do his own thing with it, but he could just be like, all right, Cates had his time. I've never done Venom before. This is how I picture Venom, or this is what I want Venom to do, and just completely undo it. So I don't know. I am very hesitant. That comes out in October, I believe. And I will definitely give it a try because I do have high hopes for Dylan Brock as Venom. I think that's cool. I think it's a nice it's a nice change.
Yeah, and my head says obviously to give them a shot, but my heart is kind of like you're trying to replace Donny Cates, and how do you do that? It's kind of like when Alan Moore left Swamp Thing. It's like, how do you replace Alan Moore? It's like it's just. Yeah. But my head said I should give them a shot. So,
Yeah.
your favorite storyline?
Favorite storyline? Oh boy. Favorite storyline. Ooh. See that's like the same thing like favorite superhero, because like I mean immediately like being pulled one way from Craven's Last Hunt and Batman Year One. You know what I mean? Like, but if I had to, if I had a top two, it would be those.
Okay, all right. Favorite artist? I think I know, but I'll let you answer that.
Definitely for favorite artist would be ooh, I'm gonna go with it's Todd McFarlane.
I knew, but maybe I don't.
That was a fake. That was a fake. Todd McFarlane. I mean, any of the guys from Image. I love watching Jim Lee draw on Twitch and on YouTube. He is just so inspiring. He really is. Always liked Neil Adams as well. I like Neil Adams as Batman. I mean, I know he's a fantastic artist, but I mean, it's if it's anything else but Batman for Neil Adams for me, like I think it's cool, but it's just not for me. There's just so many, dude. I mean, Jason Fabok is one of like the newer artists that I really, really like. I think anything that Jason Fabok is doing is just he's really evolving the game. Like he's doing everything that Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee has done in the past and sort of evolved it. That's my kind of take on it, my opinion on it. Mike Zeck has always been a great guy too. I mean, great artist. His anatomy and his take on the symbiote Spider-Man suit has always been fascinating. But those are definitely probably my top.
I noticed you didn't mention Frank Miller.
Frank Miller. Well, I mean, I like I like Frank Miller's earlier stuff, but anything like after Marvel, I don't like Frank Miller's artwork. But I've always liked Frank Miller's storytelling. I think he's a fantastic storyteller.
Mm-hmm. And there's a definite difference between his I guess his first work I think for DC I think was Ronin, I think. But his pre-Ronin or Dark Knight Returns and everything after, there's a definite difference in his art, I think.
Yeah, huge difference. I think what happened there, I mean, I don't know for facts, but I think like him at Marvel was more or less of like him going through what his mentor taught him and what was expected of him. But when he went to DC, it's like, okay, I want my own style. This is what I'm going to start doing.
The restraints are off. Do what I'm going to do what I want. So you have a new person who's read a comic. What comic do you give? Only one comic, so you can't give him like a whole run. You give him a single comic. You give him.
Okay, so there's a new person reading comics. I can give them an issue to get them stuck into reading comics.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I would totally give them ASM 300. Not one of my copies. I would give them a facsimile copy. I would give him an ASM 300.
I would make them buy his own, and then he would have to give it to me when he was done.
Actually, you know what? No, you know what? I changed my mind. Actually, because I think a lot of people don't see the true value of Swamp Thing. So I would give them Saga of the Swamp Thing. Oh damn, what issue is it? I can't remember the number of the issue, but it's the anatomy lesson. I would give them that because that's a great issue too. What is that?
Yeah.
23, 24?
I thought it was like later, like 29 or 30. I thought.
Could be right.
Okay. So, and again, I think I probably need to do this too, but when you die, you can only be buried with one comic. What would you be buried with?
Yeah, I mean, come on. All 8 ASM 300s.
Because it's not fair to separate them. They have to be together always.
They have to be together, yeah. One gets like, if you separate them, one gets like separation anxiety. You can't have that. The other one gets depressed. They got to be together.
Okay, let's talk about some of the other aspects now. Let's talk about your current. How did you get karate, and what does karate mean for you? Because I know that karate is more than just a physical discipline.
Karate is everything to me. I know, I have a YouTube channel about comics. I post a lot about comics on Instagram, but karate is my true number one passion and love. It really is. I train in that daily. If I have any spare time, I'm always doing something, whether I'm stretching, even if it's a light day, I'm stretching, I'm doing light workouts, but that's my thing. So I've been training in Shotokan karate for 15 years. Well, it's going to be 15 years in October. I've been teaching for 6 or 7 years. I mean, everything with COVID, I haven't taught for the year. Hopefully in October we're gonna get back into teaching, which I can't wait for that, because teaching for me is training for myself as well. So like one of my favorite lines is teaching it and practicing it at the same time. You know what I mean? So like teaching martial arts helps me train and learn as well, which is why I always wanted to teach martial arts. But that's always been my passion. I mean, when I was a kid, I always I liked weapons. I always thought weapons were cool, and so like my dad did martial arts for a little bit, and I grew up watching Bruce Lee with him. Like we're huge Bruce Lee fans. So when I was a kid watching those movies with him, I was like, man, I want to have the confidence that this guy has right here. Like, you know what I mean? And of course, being picked on and bullied through in school, I wanted to be able to protect myself. I wanted to, not only learn this technique and enjoy it, but if the time came, which I hope it never comes, I would be able to protect myself. So I was in high school, and I think for years I was asking my parents, like, can you please sign me up for martial arts school? Like, I just want to. I think that looks so much fun to hit something, to hit a pad or something. And they're like, no, we don't want you to get hurt. You know what I mean? And if you do get hurt, I don't know, and I don't know if we can. If you're not going to like it, we don't want to pretty much go through with payments or whatever. You know what I mean? They just didn't want me to get hurt, and so my high school had a free classes if you were a student of the school. So I stood one day after school, and I fell in love with it since day one. It was everything that I wanted to do. And I almost became thankful that my parents never did sign me up for classes, because I felt like that day that I went to that class was the perfect timing. It was then, there, right now. This is my chance. Let's go. Let's take this free class and let's see what it's about. And like I said, I fell in love with it since day one. I remember coming home that day, showing my older brother, like, oh, look what I learned today. Like, I learned this block today. You know what I mean? Like, and and that was it. From that day, I knew that I wanted to get my first colored belt. Also, by the end of that year, I know that there was the school ran a tournament. I was the first yellow belt to ever win grand championship. Oh, yeah, I was the first person to beat in sparring four belts, 4 to 5 belts higher than I was at the time. I beat advanced ranks as a yellow belt in sparring. So, you know, I was serious. I was very, very serious. I trained every single day because I knew how good this made me feel, and that I truly wanted to make something out of this. So I made myself very serious into it. I completely submerged myself in it. I thought nothing about karate and martial arts every single day. And I just wanted to learn and grow as much as possible.
And now you're a black belt. There's levels of black belts, right?
Yeah, I'm a 4th degree black belt.
Okay. And how many different degrees are there?
There's 10.
Okay.
But I mean, you don't have to get to the 10. It's just pretty much about personal growth. Like right now, I'm at a 4th degree black belt. I think I've been a 4th degree black belt for about 2 to 3 years now. I can go up for promotion, but the problem is that I have been teacherless. I've been schoolless for a few years now. But getting the next rank isn't important to me, because getting the next rank doesn't change anything about the way how I train, if that makes sense.
Right.
No other belt rank is going to make me better, because I know all of the as what we call them here, forms in America, or kata. I know all my basics, all the weapon katas. So I'm not going to learn any new techniques. It's just continuing to train and bettering myself as best as I possibly can. So being a 4th degree black belt makes me happy. Anything else is like, okay, cool. Like I'll take it if I can. If someone wants to promote me, but I'm happy where I am.
Sure. Yeah. So now, did you ever, when you're getting back into comics, did any of the martial arts comics ever interest you, or no? Like Shang-Chi or Richard Dragon?
No, they didn't, because I felt like people who did those comics missed the point of everything. It was very campy. It was very stereotypical. You know, just like the same thing with Karate Kid. Everyone's like, "Oh, have you ever watched the Karate Kid? You must have watched the Karate Kid, right?" And you know, I would be like, "No, I never did." And then when I finally did, I was like, "I wish I had never watched this movie." And then people, you know, same thing with the Netflix show. "Oh, have you ever watched the Netflix Karate Kid show?" And I'm like, "Listen, I watched the movies. I'm good." I am, because they kind of missed the point, or they kind of like missed the idea of what martial arts is about. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm probably going to hate it and just be like, I wish I had that time back.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. The last thing I want to talk about is your art. Besides being a black belt and being on YouTube, you're an artist. You're like a Renaissance man, Kevin.
I do a lot, don't I?
You do. Where did the art come from? And you know, if you haven't checked out this guy's art, too, make sure you go to his Instagram, Karate Kevin 67. He's got some great art out there.
Thank you. So again, growing up with my older brother, I consider my brother the true artist. So my brother and I, you know, as kids, everyone as kids draws, right? You know, you throw crayons or markers in front of them with a piece of paper, the first thing they're going to do is start drawing, right? So like my brother and I would draw together. That's another thing that we used to do together. Again, with the animated shows that used to come out as Wolverine, X-Men and Spider-Man, you would want to draw your favorite characters. I remember when the Spawn movie came out and I was obsessed with Spawn, and so I started drawing Spawn a lot. So as a kid, like I said, everybody draws, right? I've always been a doodler in school. Like, the teacher will be talking and I'll have my head down and I'm sketching whatever, just playing around. There's been many times where I got, maybe two times I got put in detention for drawing zombies and how inappropriate it was during class time, which I understand now. So when I got back into comics and comic book collecting again, when I first got my full-time job, I'm reading these comics, and again, I'm enamored by the comic book artwork. Like when I was a kid, when I first started seeing the comic books as a kid, and just having so much appreciation for it. And I was like, I used to really enjoy drawing. Let me try drawing again, and I didn't. It was just one of those things. It's like, I'm going to start drawing again. Just never did. And then one of my friends on Instagram, who he goes by the name Old Man Venom on Instagram. By the way, he just got signed to do his own variant covers for the Department of Truth, which are on pre-order today. So congratulations, Joe, if you're watching. He started drawing, and I saw his artwork, and I was like, that's it. He has inspired me. Like this guy on Instagram, Joe, he has inspired me. I'm going to go sharpen a pencil right now. I'm going to go buy a drawing pad, and I'm going to start sketching. And so I drew this Spider-Man versus Venom piece. I don't have the original piece anymore. I sold the piece. But I was really impressed with what I did. I was like, I can't believe I did that. I just did this. I just drew that. So I had a blast, and I started drawing again.
Yeah, it's awesome. And the I guess prints that you put out, just the last couple of days that you've shown, the TMNT one is just tremendous.
Thank you.
I know I've seen the one in the Flash that's always back behind the Burke Family 54 guy.
Yeah, that was fun.
As well. Yeah. So do you got a couple there?
Yeah. So
nice. Moon Knight, yeah.
This was this is a warm-up sketch. So this is not like this is not something I would call fantastic, but that's a warm-up sketch. Here's a Venom I did a while ago. But it's just, awesome. I'm trying not to get like, I'm not saying like I'm serious. Here's a warm-up sketch. But like, I just do it to play around and have fun. If I, and I have gotten better since I started picking up the pencil again, for sure. I have a better understanding of how certain things work. I have like a better process now of how I sketch things and what I'm using. For instance, like I used to use markers for everything, but for blacks now I'm using actual ink brushes like you would see people use on comic books. And now I totally understand why, because it does make life a lot easier with certain line weights, the thickness of lines. Also with inks and brushes, compared to markers, is that I love the saturation of blacks so much better than marker, because when you get a black marker, it can kind of die down to a very, very dark gray, but with inks it's black. So that's what I really like about it. But I just have fun, man. Like again, like I'm just trying to have fun. Like when my wife is at work, if I can get a piece done, I'm gonna do it. If I'm not training, maybe I've already trained for the day, so let's do some sketching. And it's really calming and relaxing for me. And it's like
it keeps those creative juices flowing.
Yeah, and I'm a creative person. I've always been creative. So like other besides martial arts, this is just another way how I express myself. So this is one of my favorites.
Those are tremendous. And again, if you check out his Instagram, Karate Kevin 67. Many of them are for sale too, so you can get prints of them.
Yes. So the 11 by 14s are prints only, but the smaller pieces that I showed off are for sale.
Cool.
And trust me, they're not going to cost anybody an arm and leg. If you throw me,
Yeah.
if you throw me an offer of $15, I'd probably let you have it because just probably get rid of it. And
yeah, well, they were at the top of the hour. Just one more thing I wanted to because you are a creative guy, and like I said, you've been so incredibly nice to me. I reached out to him probably about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, and I said, "Hey, I'm looking. I need a logo for my channel, and this is what I'm thinking of. Is there something that you could do? And obviously, I'll gladly pay you for your time or whatever." And so I am very happy to introduce to the world my new logo is created by Kevin Vidinha. And here it is.
ooh, hey, there it is. Nice. Cool, man.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's I know I said this before, but I really can't thank you enough for how nice you've been to me and to my channel, and when I said how much I'm going for, you're like, oh no, don't worry about it. It's and I'm like, okay. Yeah, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. For spending an hour. Again, for all you do for the comic book community on YouTube and Instagram, because the other thing that what's that comic book does, it for people like me, it gives us a little bit of exposure as well too. So and that goes a huge way. So thank you again. We're gonna end it here. Again, if this is whether you're watching it live or on the rewind, hit the like button, hit the subscribe. Make sure you hit the button for notifications, and you are leaving sector 2815 tonight at 7:30. By the way, for your show. So have a good night.
See ya.